So my name's Kevin Long, and thank you all for making it to Innovation in Motion, monthly, almost monthly thought leader gathering on interactive marketing and online innovation. Today's topic is building community through mobile. I'm really excited to have our three panelists up here. I want to have just a quick thank you to some of the sponsors. One, thank you to Puppet Labs for giving us this great space. Makes it incredibly easy for us to host these events. So round of applause for Puppet. Technology Association of Oregon, TAO, a big supporter of technology, and they were here to support us with our live streaming and video. And last but not least, CrowdCompass. CrowdCompass is the company that pays for the food. We really appreciate that. They're one of my favorite companies here in Portland. And I think they actually have a special announcement that everyone's going to be very excited to hear. Melissa, you want to just introduce yourself and CrowdCompass?
Yes.
Now, let's see if it's on. Do a test run.
Hello, test. Oh,
You're good.
Just hold it close.
Yep.
So my name's Melissa Patterson, and I'm here to represent CrowdCompass, which is a mobile event apps company. It's a Portland startup that was purchased by Cvent last year, which is super awesome because we get the feel of a Portland startup, but we have the money of a big backing company. And we're hiring. We're super excited that we're hiring. We're hiring tons of technical positions. You can go to crowdcompass.com/careers. But there's a job we're hiring for that's somebody on my team. It's a marketing position. It's an associate product marketing role. And so if you're interested or you know someone great, again, crowdcompass.com/careers. Thanks.
Great, thank you. All right. Great, with that, I would like to just do a quick introduction, and then we'll let the panelists actually introduce themselves. So Elia is sitting right next to me. Elia is the founder and CEO of Infinity Softworks. Did I say it right? I said it right. Now check your microphone.
I can put it on mute.
Oh, you put on mute. This is a technical superstar. Ellen sitting next to Elia. Ellen is the Director of Business Development. And the name of your company is
Pagatim.
And the main thing that your company does?
We make podcasts.
Podcasts. People still do podcasts. I'm super excited to hear about this. Kevin Steigerwald. Kevin is the Director of User Experience at CrowdCompass. Kevin, this is going to be super confusing with two Kevins on the panel.
Both from CrowdCompass. I was there first, so you can refer to me as K1, Kevin the Greater, anything like that works.
All right, K1 it is. We'll give it to you just for this
And not to
here.
steal Melissa's thunder because it's the same company, but my team is also hiring positions. So we have positions for a UX architect and a UI designer. So tell your friends.
Man,
same
CrowdCompass
URL as Melissa mentioned. So.
CrowdCompass is shameless tonight. Okay, CrowdCompass /careers. Okay, let's move on. We went through the introductions, which is great. If you're using Twitter, it's #InPDX. If you ever miss Innovation in Motion, you can catch it live at livestream.com/Innovation in Motion. And if you ever need video, you ever need live streaming, you ever need anything beautiful like that, please contact Paul Collette. Paul's been helping us for years. Paul is right there. He's the guy behind the camera. Round of applause for Paul for helping us out with this. K1 over here did not follow my instructions, which was send an intro slide. So I made one for him. And K1, I'll let you kick off the intros. Each panelist has an intro slide. Who are you? What do you do for a company? Sure. And what's your favorite color?
Sure. So again, I'm Kevin Steigerwald. I'm the team lead user experience at CrowdCompass. Our team is kind of really geared more on the client side for our app, so less to do with the marketing and the community building on that side. But it is really about making, a high-end design product to make sure that all of our customers get a positive experience. To put it in terms of the community, like our communities are very small with every customer. It's a different community every time we have a new customer because their events don't overlap a lot. So it needs to be a product that expands to all of those. Before that, I was at an advertising agency, actually, as an art director in Chicago. I was there for 6 years, so a lot of that time was spent right when social marketing kind of took off and no one really understood what it was. It was more just a buzzword then, so everyone, oh, we got to have social. So a lot of our time was spent trying to figure out, watching our clients learn how to use social media, teaching them how to do it, but then also learning from our own mistakes. So that's
Great.
me.
Glad you're here.
And green.
Let's see who's next. Elia.
Elia Freedman, CEO of Infinity Softworks. I started Infinity when I was a senior in college, 1997. Have been in mobile that whole time. We started with the Palm Pilots, but have developed products for Windows Mobile, for BlackBerry, iOS, Android. We even did the XP tablets back in the day. We've had success with our Power One calculator spreadsheet hybrid software. We've distributed about 20 million units and have had a ton of partnerships over the years, whether white label or straight up product partnerships, distribution deals, et cetera, et cetera. It's been an interesting world.
Elia, I was prepping for slides last night, and I went to his blog, and he was just at Mobile Portland and gave a presentation that was so good that I stayed up past midnight watching this thing. So number one, I'm pissed at you for that, and so you owe me a beer, not one of those.
You can have this kind.
Oh, look at that.
It's Coors.
Oh, Coors. Oh,
Yeah.
nice. An upgrade. And number two, what is the name of your blog so people can find that presentation?
It's EliaInsider.com, ELIA Insider.com.
And what's the name of that presentation?
Build businesses, not apps.
Build businesses, not apps.
Boy, put me on the spot there.
Really great. Great. Well, thanks for coming. Happy to have you here.
Thanks.
Okay, Ellen, you're up.
All right.
And you have a slide, and you are kissing a bird.
I am. I'm kissing our logo. That's how much I love my company.
Nice.
That was when I was in New York for the Fast Company Innovation by Design conference. And yes, podcasting is cool. I was just in Founders Land yesterday in the Bay Area and met with Will Glazer, one of the 3 founders of Pandora. The cool kids like audio.
Yeah, I heard that actually. I got a little secret slide I slipped in after I showed up here tonight. So I'm going to show you some of that.
Well, I'm biased towards story because I was raised here in Oregon in a very typical Oregonian household with no TV because that rots your brain, my mom tells me. And I would have to say I'm biased toward it still, so it must have been true because mobile is very good for audio and audio is very good for mobile. It makes it sticky. So we do solve the content needs for companies that want to make branded audio that's story-based and intriguing. All of us have our mobile phones on us. On average, we have them on us 22 hours a day. I don't know what those 2 mean. Maybe that's the plug time for those of you that don't have the little platform you drop it on near the door in the house. But regardless, everybody's on their smartphone all the time. We solve that issue with content that's intriguing and speaks to the brand's main supporters and people that are going to push out that content.
Great. Well, Ellen, we're excited to have you here, and we are going to jump into some of the podcast stuff. But before that, we always have one really hard giveaway. Now look at this question, and anyone who yells it out is going to get an incredible prize. We'll do the first question. In what year did the first mobile phones go on sale in the U.S., and for how much? What year did the first mobile phones go on sale in the U.S.? 80. Who said 83? Come on up, Tom. You got a prize. Round of applause for Tom. You win a PBR. Oh my God. Did I mention we need a beer sponsor next month? Okay. And for how much did they sell for? How much? $650 up? $4,000. Who got that? Come on up. What's your name? Mike, come on up. Round of applause for Mike. $4,000. The first mobile phone. Mike wins a premium PBR. Round of applause. All right. 1983, $4,000. We've come a long way, people. We now have Path. We now have Facebook. So I want to jump this first panel question out to Elia. So Elia, you have Path. Raise your hand if anyone here has Path on their phone or has used Path. That sounds about the right number. The only problem with Path is it's a beautiful, beautiful app, but nobody's there. That's what I always say. Except 6 million people are there, so there are a lot of people there. If you haven't used Path, I'd recommend you trying it out because it is gorgeous. And then you have Facebook, which is 6 million users, and that's being very generous on different ways you look at it. So 600 million, right?
And they actually claim over 1 billion.
They claim 1.2 billion, and then they look at active users and they look at different things. So I took the most conservative number, 600 million. And what's amazing to me is when I, use Facebook, I am like, what a piece of crap. And when I use Path, I'm like, I love this phone. I wish it was more than just seeing my 3 friends, predominantly K1s, like vacation pictures, right? So Elia, I'm going to send this first question to you. You've had 20 million units distributed. You've been around this space for a long time. What do you think about Path versus Facebook, and what do you think are some key factors with building community through mobile?
Well, the first thing I would argue is that Path is not actually solving a unique problem. Facebook already solved that problem, and they solved it better than MySpace before them. I think that fundamentally is the big problem here. I like to think in terms of jobs to be done. And the job that Facebook is hired to do is to connect us to friends and relatives, mostly long lost that we don't keep in contact with anymore. Yeah, okay, they started on the web, but who cares? Where it's located doesn't really matter anymore. And I'd make the same argument for mobile. Once upon a time, mobile was a very different market than web, a very different market than desktop. But that's no longer the case. And to treat it as something independent, anything more than a distribution channel for your technology, your product, or your service is kind of crazy. So you go read Path's description of themselves, and basically they described themselves as Facebook for mobile. And except Facebook was on mobile almost immediately when the iOS launched. In fact, I think the day the App Store launched, Facebook had a mobile app. So,
But Path is only mobile.
yeah, so.
I don't know.
Why does that matter?
Does
In
that
fact,
make a
I would
difference?
say
Well,
that would be a negative.
To jump in, I think the difference with Path when they came out was, their focus was mobile-based, and so they kind of took all of the interactions that, the majority of Facebook users are doing, and how do you, simplify that down and make it super easy. And I think they did that, but I think your point is right, is Facebook was already there, and it became very hard to get users to switch over. And one of Path's biggest problems was the user onboarding experience for the first year was very difficult. At first, it was only open to 50 people. You can only have 50 friends. So they wanted it to be kind of this opposite trend of what Facebook is, where you're friends with 500 people, half of which you probably haven't talked to in years. So they wanted to keep it small, but the problem was, okay, the 50 people I want to talk to are my family members. How am I going to get my mom onto Path? There's no way she's going to download that. It took us 4 years just to get her on Facebook. So,
But the whole 50 members, I remember when that came out, it's a Facebook that only lets you have 50 friends, and it was such a buzz topic, and I feel like they got tons of media because of that. And then you download Path, and the experience is so beautiful. So I feel like they had an interesting launch angle. And there's other, examples we're going to talk about tonight when you have limited community. Do you think that was a mistake for them to have limited community, that if anyone out here is trying to build a community through mobile, they should never try to limit it? Or do you think that cool factor sometimes pays off?
I think it was very different. I think the problem was that the space was already taken. It didn't matter whether they limited or not. Mindshare was already with Facebook. If Facebook didn't have a mobile app, yeah, it would have made a difference. Or if the experience with Facebook was fundamentally painful, yeah, okay, it's not perfect, but it wasn't so painful that people weren't really willing to do it. And I think at the end of the day, that was the problem for Path. They picked off a piece of Facebook that was really the core to Facebook, which was the check-in. Now, compare that to Instagram, which I think is a much better example of a company that took on mobile in a unique and interesting way. So people talk about the unbundling of Facebook, and the check-in is one of those pieces. The games are another one of those pieces. But photos were an underutilized aspect of Facebook, and it was a real pain always to integrate photos and share photos through Facebook, particularly on a mobile device. So Instagram basically said, look, we're going to give you everything. We're going to make your crappy pictures look good by giving you filters. We're going to make the upload process really fast by starting the upload before you even apply the filter. We're going to give you the ability to take a picture right within the app. So they basically give you everything that you need for an experience, and picking off a piece of it that Facebook really was not built for originally and was not really designed around. And I think, so Instagram, so what did Facebook do? Well, Facebook is, I mean, Zuckerberg's brilliant, right? He goes out and buys Instagram. Because what else are you going to do when you're getting beat at your own game? But now he's got the check-in piece, and look at what he's doing with paper. So with paper now, we're again taking this idea of a check-in or a stream of data and information from your friends and other sources and turning that into a beautiful presentation. Now, where is Path competing with that, and how does Path beat that out? Particularly when your whole family is already on Facebook, so it's the easiest default. Mm-hmm. I think fundamentally at the end of the day, that was Path's problem.
So when you're building a community, what if you guys, each of you are going to say what's the most important factor you should be thinking about when building a community? What would you say?
If you're building an app for a community, or just trying to build a community in general?
Building a community, you want to leverage mobile because you know it's a hot trend.
Sure.
So maybe a native app, maybe a responsive web app.
Right. I think the most important thing is to maintain your brand across everything. And when we get into some of my slides, we'll see that. But the tools are always going to change, right? Yes, it's Facebook now. Yes, Path entered the space, but I think they're going to fall off pretty fast before they actually become a player. But there's always something next. There's Snapchat. There's all these temporal chatting apps and picture apps that are coming out because kids aren't going onto Facebook. But all that stuff doesn't really matter in terms of what the tools are. If you can't communicate with the people about your brand at any level, then it really doesn't matter what the tools are. So I would say focus on your brand and make sure that your message is consistent across every single platform that you're going to talk on.
And you have an example of that coming up.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about a little bit of what Notre Dame did and how they had that consistent brand. Ellen, do you have anything to add there?
I agree with your point, Kevin, because I think that content is the key to everything. It's centralized. If your content strategy doesn't make sense across different applications, then you have nothing that's identifiable as those natural trends happen and evolve. And as to the Facebook question versus Path, maybe Path's issue was branding. Maybe they should have made it VIP lists for specific brands, because then there would have been a factor to draw people into a 50 only or 100 only. But, you know, as to your point about spaces, yeah, the space they were playing in was already gone.
The space was gone, but I do think what's interesting is the VIP thing has still shown to work. I put a slide up here of Dribble. Raise your hand if you've been on the website Dribble, you know about Dribble. So, K1, maybe you can talk a little bit about Dribble and how they launch it, and they're still doing this, like invite and pros get to post and rookies don't. And
sure.
Can you talk about this path and see if people should still do it?
You know, when Kevin asked me to talk at this panel in general, and I saw it was about mobile, I kind of struggled as to what, you know, exactly mobile community building is. And so my first example is still something that's outside the realm of mobile, but they have features that allow for mobile consumption. So their website is responsive. They have APIs. So if, you know, anyone wants to go out and build an app consuming their content, you can do it. But they really played to their strengths as developers and knew that they could build a website. So I want to start there and show kind of what things that they did focused around design. You know, their brand is show and tell for designers. And so to get that to work, you have to get the best content. And to get the best content, they had to get the best designers. And so to do that, it was exclusivity. So it was invite only. Dan Cederholm was one of the founders. I cannot remember the second guy's name, everyone knows it. But so they had kind of this tight network of designers in the community that they extended invitations to. These were the people who started uploading content, and it was up to them to invite other designers. And so it kind of became like the cool kid crowd, right, where they were only inviting other top designers. And very quickly it became this thing where, well, everyone wants to participate. But that will very quickly lower your brand if you're going to get bad designers in there putting up crap content. And so they had to evolve that from, it's still an invite-only system, but then you can get, other people can sign up to be able to comment, to be able to like their own shots, and to be able to interact that way. So I think they have well over 100,000 users, but I think it's only like 40,000 of those are actual contributors of visual content to the site. So it's really, their brand is design, and we'll show more examples of how other brands are leveraging design through all of their social media and all of their community building. But for a brand like Dribble, who was really focused on design only, that was kind of their strategy. And so it wasn't about what the platform was going to be, what the tool was going to be. Again, because there are the APIs if someone wants to make an app, and there's apps out there that do exist. But it's really about getting people on the same page with their brand and making sure that in every communication they do, they host events in communities. They have like meetups where all the designers will come out, do a show and tell for their work in person, right? So like it's taken away from the digital realm, but it's still all about high-end design.
Like they didn't worry about the big shiny tool. They've solved. They made something cool, solved a pain point, and just really, really focused on it.
I think Dribble is a really interesting example to juxtapose against Path. I mean, here's two companies that both went after restricted clientele, right? One has been arguably more successful than the other one has been. So, one size doesn't fit all in any of these businesses. They're all very dependent on who your customers are and the kind of relationship you want to have with them. And the approach, are they business customers or are they consumer customers? That has an impact as well.
Right. So, okay, I want to jump a little bit towards how I think some of the media is shifting, especially with content and for people to gather communities. I was reading this article about, I don't know if anyone saw this article a little while ago, why I bought a house in Detroit for $500. This was a 6,000 word long article. Like I've gotten to the point where it's like you crank out blog posts, they have a catchy title, you syndicate it everywhere, that's what we're doing. Goodbye content writers, hello outsourcing, happy days, right? But this thing got over 1 million views. 47% of them were on mobile devices. The average reading time on tablets was 12 minutes. The average time reading it on a phone, like look at that lady laying in the grass reading 6,000 words, right, was 25 minutes. And this was a BuzzFeed article. And they had all these other articles about how magazine-style long articles are making a comeback, and there is value of them because a lot of times people see the value and it, love the value of it. And it just made me think more about the podcast and made me think of, are we shifting from just small bite-sized chunks, and we actually want to listen to a 30-minute or a 40-minute podcast and read a long article? Ellen, I wonder if you can jump in to give your thoughts on that.
Kevin, I'm a little creeped out because this is one of the few long articles I read this month.
Oh, you
so
did?
Are you stalking my IP address? That's creepy. But exactly, this is exactly what we preach to brands, that audio is a beautiful way to get people to engage with their brand on their mobile device, wherever they're at. And the magic number for audio is 22 minutes. You see a distinct fall off in the listeners after 22 minutes. So the shareability of a podcast that's under that is really high, and the listenability. And the beautiful thing is, because it's on a mobile device and on sites that we partner with, you can see exact analytics, which isn't something you can do in a lot of spaces. So that's pretty cool. But yeah.
Maybe talk about an actual example here.
Sure.
Another mother runner. I love the name of that.
I know.
Can you
it's
talk
so cute.
about this company and where they started and where they got to?
Not my demographic. I'm not a mother, and I'm not whatsoever a runner. But this is a hilarious podcast. It's truly engaging, which is what we try to do at Pagatim and what we believe that content should be in general. Dimity and Sarah are running partners who have known each other since childhood. They both have a couple kids each. They wrote a book together called Train Like a Mother. They were going on book tours based on their publisher, going all over the U.S. with multiple toddlers each. That was obviously kind of difficult. So the two ladies started the Classic podcast in one of their garages. And it wasn't going so well. It was technically difficult. It wasn't very engaging. They met Laura Mansfield, our founder, at a half marathon, and she said, hey, you should let us produce it. So they did, and 3 years later, their podcast is classically on iTunes noteworthy list and top 10 in parenting, in running, in outdoors, constantly. Their podcast they did around the Boston Marathon, clearly there was a hype there. But it was over 40,000 listens within the first couple of hours it was out. Their community, talking about mobile community, they went from, like I said, doing national tours for their books to their Facebook page where they host most of their podcasts just blows up. It's so interactive. The women that listen to them listen as a running partner. So it's beautifully crafted to be this runner with them wherever they're going. And clearly, because they're mothers of young children, it's difficult to find such a person. So it's very humorous. It's very chit-chatty for ladies who are busy, and it hits perfectly. So now
help me understand the jump of this. So they're in their garage doing the podcast.
Yeah.
Because I could just see that. Everyone's like, oh, I saw this panel on podcast. I'm just going to crank out some podcasts and happy days.
But it's kind of rough. If any of you guys have ever interacted with an Apple platform, they're picky and they're a little bratty and they don't let you on so easy. So not only getting onto iTunes or any of the major platforms where people will hear you, but just the technicalities for the average person. Being a producer is an art, just like every other art form.
So do your clients come into your office and do the recording?
Yeah, a lot of our local ones do, and then we Skype in anybody who's not local. So
they come in and you help them get reshifted of like, here's how you should twist your topic, or you help on the promotion, and how do you actually go about doing that?
Our differentiator is that we do the entire process. We help from strategic planning and identification of who is your audience, especially for a brand or an individual hoping to target a specific demographic. So identification, strategy, nothing gets done without a good plan. So you plan first, then we help with the content creation and mapping it out like any editorial calendar. And then our producers, we have some OPB producers, we've stolen from other NPR stations, because we're good at that. And so they're actual story curators. They're very, very good at what they do, and they make art. It's beautiful. And then we put it out on platforms. We have a personal relationship with the VP of iTunes. So like Terry Starbucker is a local noteworthy in the VC scene and the Twitter scene, and he runs the Social Media Club of Portland. And I cajoled him into doing a podcast a couple months ago. In the first month, it got on New and Noteworthy, top 200 of all iTunes, and top 10 in the business feed. And
how does that happen? Because it's a celebrity, or because
because we called and we're like, Terry's really cool. You should listen to his content, guys. And they did, and he's up there. And he's pretty excited.
I still don't get it, though. Like, I need to know, I'm going to make a podcast, and it's going to be awesome. Okay, it's going to be awesome. And I want it to be really, yeah, it is. And let's say I have the strategy down. Let's say it's tight. Let's say the topic is down and it's great. Then I want to make it popular. So, if you build it, they won't come. So, what happens now? I upload it. Like, give me two things.
Like any other piece of content, like the copy that lovely Katie Silver puts out on her Vitamin T blog, which is the only one I read out of an agency in town because it's hilarious. Anything has to be engaging, so you start with that. But you also, obviously, to be engaging, you have to know your market. Who are you trying to hit? I think silly, ridiculous wordplay is humorous. Not everybody might. So I'm their perfect target audience. You start with that, and then you put it in the places where they're listening. Podcasting hits a higher demographic, typically because busy executives don't have time to sit around and watch a YouTube video or watch the typical advertising purveyors channels like TV and terrestrial radio, the old school kind of modulations for advertising. So
what's an example of places where they're listening?
I think I have more to add to that in terms of like if anyone's thinking of starting your own podcast or any type of community. I used to run, and you'll see in some of my slides, I am embarrassed by this, I am slightly addicted to Notre Dame football. And I used to run a video blog. We did it for 3 years, and it was my brother and I, and we were actually sitting in not a garage, but we were in like a service elevator of a building. We would wait, we worked together, and we would wait until the office closed down. We knew no one would be in the elevator. We would set up a camera, film this show, so it looked gritty and grungy. But the catch to getting, we get recognized when we go to games now. And so there's nothing more awesome yet humiliating when you're in line for like a urinal and someone taps you on the back saying, awesome
Right.
show, man.
Right.
But so like the way you have to get your core audience to begin with when you're starting from scratch is you have to find your rabid fan base. And it's the same thing with the example of Dribble. It's like their rabid fan base are going to be top designers who want to show off their stuff. Ours was finding the absolute fanatics like us who just want to consume as much content in between Saturday to Saturday when the games are. They spend all day at work reading blogs, listening to other podcasts. So we knew we kind of had this instant market if we could get a product out there. And luckily, you know, your number, this 22 minutes, the magic number, like our shows, we try to be right around that without even knowing that was the number. So maybe that was part of it. But, you know, we would release a show every Wednesday, and we would get, you know, thousands of views in that first hour because we would release it right at lunch break. So it's about knowing your audience, when they're going to be consuming this data, and really getting that rabid fan base, because they then are the ones who will promote it for you. And, you know, it was very easy for us at that point to kind of expand.
It's kind of the new paradigm that I'm sure most of you have heard now. Instead of 15 minutes of fame, everybody's famous to 15 people, or internet famous, you know, is that we all have our tiny, tiny sub-base thing that we're just crazy and rabid about. Jackie Huba, the marketing person behind Church of the Customer blog, put out last year in her book on Lady Gaga and her brilliance at marketing that the new paradigm is no longer the old 80-20 split where we believed 80% of content was made by 20% of the population. It's now 199. And I think about this in my group of friends. This is totally true. We all have that one friend who will write a nasty review of anything and post anything, and it's kind of outrageous, but that is the person making 99% of the content. The rest of us are voyeurs online, actually. We may be posting privately. I post almost all privately to friends because I really don't want to see the mishmash of everybody else's lunch that day or whatever on different platforms. But,
what about Cliff Bars? Would you want to see Cliff Bars?
You know, I'm not a runner and I don't modulate my training regimen that much, but they have their crazy people that love, love, love their podcasts. So, yeah, they have a rabid fan base, Cliff Bar does.
So if you look at the fan base between Cliff Bars and I also have this other one, True Nature Radio, which of the two do you think, you know, like Cliff Bar, right? Their fan base was, let's put it on our blog because people are already reading our blog.
Yep.
Is there any other place that they put it?
We put all of our clients out on all the audio platforms, and then the way that audio...
How many audio platforms are there?
We post to 6, and then the way that audio works in the mobile space is that all the new platforms scrape from iTunes. So we're actually on like 30 new platforms a week or some ridiculousness, but that's just being harvested like everything else, the bots and the little things out in the interweb.
Is your title and your tags like absolutely critical, like when you're putting in an app in the store and you want to get found?
It's still SEO, but we're a media producer, so we're not considered individual producers like anybody off the street or in their basement or in their closet would be.
Or
so that
in an
helps
elevator.
a lot in an elevator down by the river. But anyway, so that it helps.
Okay.
It helps to have peeps.
Okay. Okay. Well, actually, here is one. I tell you that I'm not totally begging on podcasts. Kent over here, who is the staff, I was saying, yeah, I got someone on my panel that her whole company, all they do is podcasts. And he's like, oh, we do podcasts here at Puppet. And then he brings me in just like 30 minutes ago into a back room, and they have it, you know, set up with their board, and they got the microphones and nice sound room, and a ton of work goes on it, and it's on the Puppet blogs, and he showed me it, and so I am starting to be a little bit of a believer, and CrowdCompass might be putting out some podcasts pretty soon. So definitely stick around. We need to pick your brain a little bit and find out the secrets to the trade more than just putting on six platforms. I know you got some secret nuggets you're saving for the end of the presentation, aren't you?
Of course.
All right. K1?
Yeah, so...
You're talking a little bit about Notre Dame and consistency.
If you want to jump back 2 slides real quick just to run through some numbers. So like I mentioned, Sick Addiction to Notre Dame. Through my podcast, I met the guys who kind of run all the digital marketing at Notre Dame. So I thought I would not make this about me and let's talk about someone else, but still within my wheelhouse. So the Fighting Irish digital media department is about a team of 10 people who, right, they're producing videos, webcasts, they do coaches shows. They basically, if we were still doing our show, it's possible that they would put it on their sites. We stopped doing it just because I ended up moving out to Portland from Chicago, so distance-wise, it was too hard.
It's too far from the elevator.
We did do it. We did 1 year where it was like we set up an iMac and we were doing it over FaceTime and just lost its charm. Anyway, but so, they're kind of the brand keeper for the voice of Notre Dame, but all of their teams, all of their channels are managed by people outside of their control. And so if you jump ahead again to 2 slides, this goes back to everything I've been saying about making sure that your message and your brand is clearly defined and communicated, and then kind of let your troops send it out. And so what you see here on the left, this stream of images are all of the photos that all the different teams will post every single time on Facebook when they talk about an upcoming game. And so posting photos along with content on Twitter, on Facebook, has shown increase of like 150% user engagement on Facebook and almost double on Twitter. So it's super important as you want to engage users to provide clean, clear design across all channels. So it doesn't matter who on your team is sending this out, they are going to know this is, okay, officially from the brand, I recognize this, it's important. It also makes it super easy for then the users to reshare that data. You'll see that in a second.
So you're saying, and this is interesting, when you're building community through mobile, you're ripping through Facebook or whatever, your
Right.
different feeds, you're seeing a lot of different things, and you're saying that, so if I'm following the Notre Dame
Sure, there's
page,
yeah, it would
and
be a
then
Notre
this
Dame
is all
fan page,
sub-pages, or these are all sub-pages?
if you were following me, you would see this pop up because if I shared it
Yeah.
directly, right? And so,
But if
the
I'm
intention-
following Notre Dame, do I get all these different ones, or do I follow per sport? Like, do they break down their
they
Facebook
do both.
page?
They have like a main official Notre Dame page.
Yeah.
But that's usually they will be sending out, kind of campus-wide information from that. If you want to follow the individual sports, football is obviously the biggest. You follow, the individual teams, and so
So if I see soccer
right,
come across my feed, it's going to have that picture
right, and
every time, no matter what they're saying, and it's
not no
gonna
matter
have,
for these pictures they're sending it out with game information, right? So
if it's
about
game
a
information, it's going to be a repeat picture,
right? Because
so it
their
becomes brand
biggest
consistency.
right. They obviously want attendance at their games. They want people to watch it if it's going to be on TV.
Right.
So they will draw people in with those visuals. And again, like the attention span of humans consuming anything is so low, especially on your phone. You're just flipping through things and you're stopping when you see those photos. And maybe you're even not. You might be flying through those, but it's easier to grasp what you're seeing faster than reading a couple lines of text. So design, really helps bridge that gap of even if you're flying past content, you have to assume that's going to happen. Make sure that you have your brand and voice communicated quickly so that people are still seeing you're putting out content, and if they want to engage, they will.
So, Elia, we talked before about how you had 20 million units go out, and you've been doing it's calculators, right?
Yeah.
A long time.
Yeah, or too long.
Like how long?
17 years.
17 years. And so what is the shift that you've seen of trying to get, to build a mobile community of how did you used to do it? How did you used to get, is your downloads less now and you're doing more development? Like what is the shift that you've seen?
Well, when we started, it was all disconnected devices. So that made it really hard to try to build community when you couldn't connect them to anything. The second thing to keep in mind is that we have business customers, not consumer customers for the most part. So their requirements for sharing are very different. What we've done over the last I don't know, 6-7 years is start to build in community around calculation itself. So how do we build a library of computations that anybody can download and use? How do we make it possible for people to share those across within their company, privately or publicly? How do we give them the ability to share the computations that they're doing? Does the data that's being generated from the computations have meaning and input for the companies? So these are the kind of questions that we've been able to ask ourselves. But once upon a time, we couldn't ask ourselves any of these things because there was literally no way to get them off the devices. So from that perspective, this world's changed. And that all started with the BlackBerry was when we really could start thinking about that kind of world. Even in the early smartphone days with the Palm and Windows Mobile smartphones, the bandwidth and the connections were so bad. It was 2400 baud dial-up modems back from the 1993. So
Right.
big difference.
When you watch Elia's presentation for Mobile Portland, it's really interesting how he kind of recaps a decade in mobile and how it shifted. K1, two pictures here that I thought were great that you sent over. One is how you syndicate images. So a lot of people, what happens is they get their blog post, they get a great picture, you get a hot title, and that's your juice to be syndicating. So now what you were talking about is every time you put out an image, not only put text in the image because of the sharing, but also think about how it's going to be shown on whether you're on Facebook versus Twitter.
Yeah, so you have to know your platforms, and if you want to include images in there, different platforms at different resolutions are going to crop your image, scale your image down, or actually remove content. So, here's a post that again Notre Dame does for all of their games. They'll show the list of all of the channels or anywhere that you can watch or listen to the game. But this would not work on Twitter, right? If you post this image on Twitter, now with Twitter's inline stream, they crop your image out. And so you kind of have to know all of your tools that you're going to be using in your mix to make sure that there's not one image that's going to work across the board. Or if you are using Instagram and posting that directly to Twitter, you have to think like those images no longer show up in stream. So now someone's going to have to click through to see that content. So it all kinds of goes into the mix of thinking about what tools you're using and how you're going to engage the user. So for Facebook, right, you get larger images that you can post, and that's how they handle it here, but they have a completely different solution for Twitter or Instagram.
Okay. So just to be clear, that's one image right there. It's not with something running on the side. So I want to talk about Google Hangouts for a minute. I think that's an interesting way to build online communities. But before that, I want to talk about just how Notre Dame built their different apps, because they have functional apps for the numbers people, and then they have the fun apps.
Sure,
talk about
real
that.
quick. But again, when you're thinking about the mobile space, how does that brand carry over? And you can see here these are two different iPad apps that they have. One is, the one on the left is very functional. It's basically a game program. Every week they'll release a new update. You can download, get all the stats from the previous game, everything for the upcoming game. So it's really like a hands-on 30-minute sit down and read type thing. The one on the right is actually a different app, but you can see stylistically, right, it looks like it's coming from the same app, and that is the entire app right there. It's one screen. You take a selfie with yourself in a helmet, so it's something more for the kids, doing user engagement that way, and thinking again about building your community, outside of the mobile space. During Saturdays, they have someone on campus with an actual helmet who will walk around and let kids take pictures wearing the helmet, and then they'll post those on Twitter as well. So it kind of like brings all of that full circle of taking outside of the mobile experience, getting people engaged that way, and then bringing them into it.
I think it's interesting, like when Ellen was talking about you develop good content and then you try to involve other people, or you involve people in the community and you get that extra boost from it. So any way you can think about, it's not just the shiny tool that'll do it. You have to go out there, pound the pavement, make it happen.
Yep.
That functional app must be pretty depressing most weekends.
Oh man, I'll see you after the show.
Was that? I'm not very good at sports. Was that a football dig?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, sweet. Look at that. Got some banter. All right, I called my friend last night at like 11 o'clock, and I was like, dude, I really want to talk about Google Hangouts, and you're the only person I know that has run like 10 Google Hangouts for like a company that sells airplane parts. And so he didn't have any slides prepared. So then I went on to Facebook, and this was his picture. So if anyone's sitting next to this guy, Bill, there he is. Round of applause, Bill, come on up.
Come on up. Bill, have a seat. Let's innovate. Have a seat. So, I talked to Bill for like 10 minutes about Google Hangout, and I think it's an interesting concept. There's an example of what it looks like. You can get, roughly speaking, 15 people on it. Different people come on. You have different topics. They actually have some sort of a sign-up mechanism. I tried to figure it out. I jumped around. Bill's like, no, you got to go here and you got to go there. It was a little confusing, but I do think it could be really cool for certain communities that are trying to build a presence via a mobile community. I even tried it on my phone, and it was still it was a good experience to watch and everything. I just don't understand the steps in order to use it as a real business. And Bill, I wonder if you can just back up a little bit and talk about who you are, what do you do, and why are you doing Google Hangouts for airplane parts?
Thanks, Kevin.
Let's test the mic. Test. Let's see. We might have to give you my Janet Jackson microphone. Paul, is there any secret here?
Turn it on.
Maybe the batteries are dead? Sweet. Ooh, this thing's horrible to wear. You ready?
close.
Are you
Let me
ready?
get close.
We're gonna share. Here, grab it like a mic.
As long as there's no wardrobe malfunction, we'll be okay.
That was nice.
This was planned.
This one's planned. Bill, I just tried to get close to you.
Yeah, thanks. So I have a, thanks. Bill Mixick. I've only been in Portland for about a year and a half, and I'm a marketer, designer, basically jack of all trades.
What? Just when I was getting
Thanks.
comfortable?
I know. Kevin's always trying to get close, fresh. So basically, I've got a full-time job, but the thing that I actually really, really enjoy doing is outside of my 40-hour work, which is helping my in-laws' business, which is a airplane tool company or aircraft building tool company located in central Iowa. Thank you. They've been in business for 20 years, and up until recently, they've been operating off the whole word-of-mouth marketing concept or model. And we knew there was a built-in market or a built-in community for these people already because we've been to trade shows, and it's basically like pull up the bus with this set of tools, and you're just swarmed immediately with all these really, really great stories about how great the tools are and how great the support is, and all these things, which to me is just an untapped opportunity for us to be doing way more online. So having that equity built with the community has been fantastic, and what we did was decide to start leveraging a couple of modern marketing tools or channels to help leverage that community, and one of them was doing Google Hangouts. Because we work with a tactile product like tools, and we have to show people how to use those tools, it's not like a hammer and a wrench. We're talking about things to help dimple aluminum skins and specialized wrenches and specialized torque and all these different things, tools that plug into your air compressor. And this is a garage builder's project or hobby. So these are average people, just like me. I've never done anything mechanical in my life until I've started building this airplane. So I have no idea how many CFM my air compressor puts out. I don't care. I just want somebody to tell me if it's right or not. And Cleveland Aircraft Tool is one of those companies that you can call up at any time and have that conversation. But what the GM was finding was that there's so many questions that are asked over and over and over again. Wouldn't it be great to have some of these conversations and record the content, show how accessible we are in that way? So we started doing these Hangouts on air. And there's this delineation that Google has between a Hangout and a Hangout on air. And the Hangout on air is basically just a Hangout for the standard 15 people, but it actually records and posts the content to your YouTube page. So
the people at the bottom are the people who jumped on?
yeah, that's right. So that is not me, and this is not one of our Hangouts.
This
Just for the
is just,
record.
this is last night. I took a screenshot. I watched this for 10 minutes. It was Insomnia's, it was a topic about gay and lesbian rights for insomnia acts. And it was amazing. I was watching these 15 people have this conversation. It was really cool. And if I would have jumped on, I would have been like the last square, and I could have just jumped right in the conversation. If you haven't tried this, you gotta check it out. But what I don't understand then is, okay, I want to use this as a tool, and I want to have people sign up for it. So it's not like GoToMeeting or WebEx where I got my form and everything. How do you get people to sign up for it?
Throw your logical marketing registration process out the window, because it is not standard. It is not like anything you've ever done before. The way that we do it is kind of just like you throw something out there, and whoever registers, well, you can kind of assume that 40 or 50% of the people who actually register are going to show up, but to get them actually into the work stream, into the Hangout, it's kind of a hit or miss. It's this process where, especially for Hangout on Air, you have to create the Hangout on Air, publish the link to your Google Plus page or some other social media avenue, and people will click through and join the Hangout if they get in. Connectivity is a huge problem for Hangouts on Air. There's this little dinging sound that happens every time somebody joins, and you can actually toggle that now. But so the first couple of Hangouts, it was just ding, ding, ding for the entire hour that we were running this Hangout on Air. And it was kind of a nightmare, but over time, it's just like anything else. You kind of get used to the workflow.
You have to have a Gmail account.
You have to have a Gmail account.
And once it hits 15 people, it won't let anyone else in.
Right. They shoot you off to the YouTube page, your YouTube page, where the event is actually being broadcast live.
Okay.
So there's a little short delay, but it's a live event that they can watch at that point.
And then can you control people who are on the screen that everyone else is watching? Like what if you get someone messing around?
The base functionality does allow you to mute participants, and there's also a couple of toolbox tools that they include or that you can install onto your machine, and it allows you to do a couple of specialized things. But it's also very hit or miss. We've tried muting people before, and all of a sudden we hear them talking or messing around on their side, and you just kind of have to roll with the punches.
How many have you done?
We've done 6 or 7 now at this point.
So last question, what's the biggest difference between the first one you did and the 7th one you did? What did you learn?
Just like anything else, you have to plan in advance, and you have to get out there about an hour early just to start making sure that you're publishing the links and making sure everything's set up right. You do a couple tests because you just really have no idea what's changed this week. It's a new technology, and we know that Google is just iterating week after week, so you just have to kind of figure out what they did last week and hope that everything's set.
If everyone here wants to check out, what do they search for to go look at some of the live conversations going on? Google On Air Hangout?
Google Hangouts on.
Google Hangouts on Air.
Yep.
Bill, can you stick around for 4 minutes of questions?
Sure.
Okay. We're gonna go to just a wrap up here and have the speakers just say a couple words. Ellen, you have a couple slides here. Elia, then you have a slide, and K1, you have a slide with some takeaways. So, Ellen, do you want to just do a kind of a wrap up of thoughts if you're trying to build a mobile community? Thinking, podcasts, thinking what can you do and how can they be used. And I think you have a slide for internal and external use.
Well, you guys can read for yourself internal and external potential uses. But wait, I just want to clarify, Kevin Long. Does this make you Kevin K2?
Yes.
Damn
I've
it.
been thinking of this. That is excellent. You and a mountain. Anyway,
I tried to shake that. I've been trying to shake that name for some time.
I'm glad I'm bringing it back.
Nice.
Sweet. My little nugget that you asked for earlier to be saved is that just like anything else, when you're building community, if you really want it to be successful, obviously have the community push it out. Just like in blogging, the best way to get additional SEO is to invite guest bloggers who have amazing networks, not somebody who's awesome and smart but has zero network oomph. That could be really cool for you if you're a super fan, but not very effective for building community. Same thing in audio or video or anything else. Have people on that have a great network that are dynamic and have them push it out and twist their arm to do so. But it works brilliantly for brands to connect to stakeholders that they've been yearning to connect to. Our first corporate client was here in Portland, Keen Footwear, and James Curley, who's now at Levi's, was at Keen, and he said, oh my gosh, this is a way I could connect to all these people I've been wanting to work with. So sure enough, he called up all these people in the industry and said, hey, come on my podcast. It's really cool. I'm going to fund it. Boom. 3 years later, he had products with every company that he'd wanted to do products with that had shut him out before he gave them free content.
Because it's so much easier for them. Could they call in, or was it in person?
It doesn't matter.
So
Call
they
in
call
person.
in, no
Everybody
problem.
loves to hear themselves on somebody else's thing. It starts the
Right.
conversation.
Right.
That's why I'm here.
Yeah.
Nice. Nice.
It wasn't the
I can't wait.
past?
We got to hurry up. I got to get home and watch the video. All right. External uses?
External uses, that's what I was pushing. I was just giving you nuggets. You said save a nugget.
It
They
was a
can
good
read
nugget.
it.
So the nugget is you have your best friend that doesn't have any friends. Don't
Don't
be
put
so
'em
worried
on.
about them.
Yeah, don't use
Focus
them.
on popularity.
Use your messaging to spread the brand message via people who are going to be interested and push it out
Right.
and have amazing networks.
Right. What did you
So.
guys call that community? The core community? The addicted community?
Yeah, like the one percenters
The what? The
of your
rabid?
brand, creating
The
99%.
rabid. The rabid community.
Rabid.
There we go. Cool. Take it away, sir.
We talked about this earlier, but I think the community has to fit the product, not the other way around. My customers are business customers. They don't have time to spend on Twitter, and they're not doing social stuff on Facebook. I can give them all the tools they want for tweeting stuff. They're not going to do it. I could put status updates in the app. They could care less. You know, we had to build around the concepts that they cared about and the approach that they wanted to take as business professionals for figuring out the right community for them. Sometimes it takes some trial and error. Yeah, I was kind of lucky in this regard because I'd worked with them for so long before we even had the ability to build any sort of community into the products that made it very, very straightforward for us to understand and know exactly what. But this is something that I talked about last Monday, is the amount of time and effort and thinking about a new product and a service and all the different pieces beyond just the business model that need to be thought through. And I think community is absolutely one of those important things.
Great. K2?
Yeah, so,
Oh, you switched it on him. Nice.
I missed it. Too many paps. If there's one thing that you guys want to write down, this would be it, and I want to make sure no one in this room is named Clay Shirky, right? Because I stole this from him. But so you want to lead the conversation, don't follow it. And that Clay's quote is that if you have more than 5 customers, someday they will start talking about you, and they may not let you in. So you have to be prepared, and you have to be ready with your message, with your branding, with your design to lead that conversation. Because whatever you think, whatever tool you want the conversation to be on, they might have it somewhere else. They might go to some corner of the internet you didn't even know exists and talk about you. You have to be ready to communicate on their level. So that would be the most important thing. Some of the other things we've talked about, consistency across your platforms. I think we've shown that with some of the things Notre Dame does. Design gets your message further than words. So I've hinted at that. My best slide you skipped over. But if anyone remembers 2 Super Bowls
It'll be
ago-
on the podcast, man.
Yeah. The last Super Bowl where the lights went out during the game, right? And Oreo tweeted out that image of, you can still dunk in the dark. And everyone, that became the most talked about commercial during the entire day. And so Oreos was smart. They knew they didn't have the budget to release a commercial, right? So they instead, people think like, oh, that was just some clever writer for Oreo who put that out. They actually had a war room of people ready for any type of event, and they lucked out with a great one, but like they actually planned that for weeks and ran tests and said, what can we do that's going to work super fast and get the word out there? I don't know if anyone here is White and Kennedy, but they did something very similar with the Old Spice guy, right? They had a whole stream of live videos of him answering people back. So people would tweet him a question, he would film a video, they would air it within like 30 minutes or something. They had to get so much approval from all the teams involved, but basically get that sign off and say, we trust you, get the voice out as soon as you can. But again, they were doing that with video, they're doing it with images. Anyone watched the Grammys this year, one of the most tweeted images was from Arby's, because they made fun of Pharrell for wearing that hat that looked like theirs. And again, it's like a lot of big commercials were shown during that, but everyone was on Twitter. Arby's knew that. They had a great opportunity. Explore the tools. Can you go back to my points here?
Yeah.
You want to play to your strengths, right? But and find the tools that help you get that message across. So explore everything. Don't be afraid to try new things. But again, it goes back to you need to be able to speak where your audience is. So you have to be familiar with these things. And that goes to the last one is like understanding the limitations. I hinted on that with like knowing the different sizes of the crops on images when you post on Twitter. Instagram doesn't post to Twitter. Like those are things that you have to know if you want the highest user engagement. When you create a brand page on Facebook or an app on Facebook, there's like 7 or 8 different graphics that you have to upload that you may think, oh, I'm never going to need that, but the one person who like tries to auth into your app is going to see that logo and it might be a generic settings logo and they're like, well, this is not a brand I can trust anymore. So you really have to make sure that you're covering all your bases from the design side of it, because that's where users are really going to start to trust you, and then they will do the work for you.
Great. So we're running out of time. We're not going to be able to do Q&A today, but we are going to go across the street, and the cool people are going to be over there having a beer. So the panelists, if you guys have a minute to stop over, that would be great to answer any questions. Because we're out of time, we're going to ask Bill to just wrap up with special closing announcements. Take it away, Bill.
All right, should I read this with Kevin's spelling, or should I correct for him?
I think you should correct for me and just keep moving
Okay. Thanks to Paul Collette for video. Thanks to Puppet Labs for the space. TAO for video. CrowdCompass for food. And we need someone to buy the beer for next month. Not it. And what the future of mobile looks like is March 4th. Everyone meet for drinks across the street at On Desk Sports Bar and Grill.
It was like 12:30 last night. On Deck Sports Bar
No
across
excuse.
the street. All right. Thanks a lot for the panelists. I really appreciate you taking the time coming down.